Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, it is Wednesday. It is the Mattriarchy. I am, as per usual, your host, Matt Reese, and we are here with a table of Batman aficionados to discuss my favorite Batman story. How is everybody doing?
Oh, we're skipping the intro?
Yeah, I don't have it. It's on my other machine.
Oh, it's on your other... Oh, okay. I guess
Yeah.
we're freestyling today. All right,
Yeah,
okay.
Shall we act it out?
No, that's okay.
I feel free. Go for it.
No, you don't know what you're asking. Okay.
I don't remember what the last one was, actually.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
Okay, moving on. And somebody tuned in and they're like, oh, there's no intro. I'm out of here.
It'll be back next time, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Unless my computer bricks.
Oh, gosh.
That's the only...
Oh, hey, RJ.
RJ is here.
So we set up this my favorite whatever a while ago, and
it was been 84 years.
It might have been my idea. Not brag.
It was. I wanted to do Green Lantern because it was a little off the beaten path, but no, we're your Batman.
No, I was talking about the segment, but
apparently next time we're gonna do my favorite Wolverine comic. Anyway, so
I think I already know
who wants to go first? Because I guess let's ask first whether or not.
Oh, I love that.
Who all did their homework?
I did.
I did about half of mine. I was
What is
preparing
the
to do
homework?
more. Oh, it was reading all the comics.
See, I didn't know we were supposed to do that. Sorry.
Yeah, I was not aware of that either.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I thought we were all supposed to bring
Who's
our own
responsible
and
for
present
this clown show? No.
Detective 27, come on.
Anyway, so well, I read them all, so I did my homework, so I'll carry the rest of the class as usual. All right. At least I read them all.
I only read 2 of them, but one of them was my pick that I have read like 20 times.
There we go.
So I'm very well acquainted with Batman 459. So that was the one I brought. Of course, I can't show any screenshots because they're on my other computer.
I got you, fam. I got you. I got screenshots
good.
covered.
So Twitless, since you are the most prepared, you want to go first?
I do not want to go first because my pick is going to be like is a palette changer. Let's start with something that's a little bit more like middle of the road.
Okay.
So like I would think that Cartoonicus and I should not be the first.
I was gonna say mine isn't either.
I would say let's lead off with I think we should lead up with Hutch's pick. Actually, I think that's the most. I think that's a really good like because it's got everything in it. It's like everything.
Yeah,
it's almost that it's kind of a problem in terms.
Oh,
of
it's a Zack Snyder film.
In terms of how much everything is in that story.
I'm not sure it's a problem, but we're maybe getting ahead of it there.
Alrighty. Let me pull that sucker up then. Hutch, you want to give us the pitch for this one?
Sure. This is Detective Comics 526. It is the 500th appearance of Batman in Detective Comics. And this is by Jerry Conway, or Gary. I don't know if it's Gary or Jerry, but Jerry Conway. And I swear up until I read it earlier today, reread it, I thought that it was not. So I didn't realize it was Jerry Conway, but this is, unfortunately, this nice 2-page spread is across 2 pages in this PDF. So
here, I'll go ahead and hold my regular copy up to show everybody here. I'll put myself on the, because I can just.
Sure. And the funny thing is I'm looking at this is I realize how much the Rogues Gallery has changed in the 40 years since this came out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Privateer and Black Spider.
Right. And oddly enough, there's a whole bunch like the Signal Man who don't even appear in this group shot, but are in the story for some reason. Mm-hmm. So, there's Captain Stingery, who is frozen into a block of ice in this issue. And then he later is mentioned in Identity Crisis. So I guess they just, they negate a lot of what happens here. What's that?
Did they just leave him frozen for all that time?
I guess so.
Yeah, the Captain America arc.
Yeah, they were like,
Yeah,
we're not going to
exactly.
follow this guy.
But there's Catman. There's the Spook. Oh, is everybody seeing my my
Yeah,
PDF?
yeah, we got
Okay,
we got it. We got it.
all right. I was
Uh,
seeing a
z-
play button, so
Zoom in a little bit on it so we can see it a little better, if you don't mind.
sure, I can.
Yeah.
Hang on. You won't. It'll be probably bigger than the the page, but
That's all right.
okay,
Yeah, there we go.
so-
That's better.
there we go. The art is by Don Newton and Alfredo Alcala.
Love
And
them.
yeah, and I this what I was saying about the this is all of Batman's villains get together basically because Killer Croc has appeared as the new mob boss of Gotham. He's trying to set himself up as the guy who will kill Batman. So they decide to kill Batman first and steal his glory. And in the setup of last issue, Dick Grayson went to some of his fellow aerialists, the Todds, and asked them if they would trail this car that belongs to Killer Croc if they see it again. And so this is the first appearance of Killer Croc is this year, 1983, and he's driving a car, which just goes to show you how much Killer Croc has changed since his first appearance. But
Yeah, I was just going to say that this is you can tell this comic is old because it takes Killer Croc seriously as a threat to the entire Gotham underworld, and that is something that I have not seen very often. So
yeah,
Really? Because
And
last
at
I
the
saw
time-
Killer Croc, he was like eating people alive.
no, but
Exactly.
he gets Flanderized to the point where he is just a cannibalistic brute. Here he's seen as kind of like a criminal leader that could threaten the entire underworld. After Bane shows up, and I like Chuck Dixon, but I do
It's
hold
before
that.
Bane. It's before Bane.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying
Yeah.
the point I was making is once Bane shows up, once Dixon introduces him, he kind of like Killer Croc never gets to have. It's something that I almost would hold against Dixon because it's like, because I like reptilian type characters, and the fact that Killer Croc was seen here is not just being a brute but being kind of clever, having an edge to him that kind of even gave him an advantage over the other Rogues Gallery members. He was supposed to be the new hotness, and then Bane came along, and then he became like the definitive criminal underlord character who could fight Batman on every level, and Killer Croc basically just got shafted after that.
The thing is, I think your timeline's wrong. like the Flanderization of Croc happened like before that, like even before the Batman the Animated Series edition of Croc.
Yeah.
So like
What I was
before
going to
Tim
touch
Drake
on-
was Robin, Croc was already just a brute.
Well,
He may
again,
not have been a monster yet. He wasn't the criminal mastermind of him had been leached out entirely.
I mean, I'll rephrase and say, by the time Bane shows up, Croc doesn't even get that. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Like by the time Bane shows up, Killer Croc just becomes like he doesn't have anything. He doesn't have to be. He doesn't get to be a criminal like leader. And in terms of being the big tough strong guy, he gets like just destroyed.
Yeah, I
So
think that
it's
has
like-
more to do with Grant Morrison than Chuck Dixon.
Yeah, that's and if I may, that is what I was going. This is all what I was going to get to, but
Okay.
yeah. In my story, my favorite story, Killer Croc is introduced as an African American from down south, where he was brutalized and mistreated because of both his skin and his skin condition. So his skin color and his skin condition kind of made him an outsider. He was an alligator wrestler, and so he just had a skin condition, and he filed down his teeth. And by the time of the Arkham Asylum Grant Morrison book, it's like his thoughts are just scratches, so animalistic. And
We're talking about Arkham Asylum. by
yeah, and
Morrison?
then in Hush,
Okay.
they had him mutate. They said that his mutation has gone further, and now he's a big alligator guy. So, maybe you can explain it away that his skin condition was at first misdiagnosed. It was misdiagnosed as a skin condition. It was actually a mutation, and then later he sprouts a tail and big jaws and all that. But it's. Yeah, he's not as respected as he is here. And then every now and then, some writer tries to take him seriously, and suddenly he's no longer a animal guy. He's just a person talking like he's a gangster again. But it's hard when there can't be any consistency to him. But yeah, I like the guy. As I was saying, the Todds agreed to follow this vehicle in the previous issue, and that is a mistake because I'm trying to find the scene where it happens, but basically here we go. The Todds are found at the reptile thing at the zoo, and Commissioner Gordon is really mean to him. You brought them into this, Robin. It's on your head. It's just make him feel really, really guilty that they're dead. And so Killer Croc kills Jason Todd's parents. This is the issue where it happens. This is the issue where Jason Todd is introduced as and everybody said he's too close. He's just another aerialist. What's that?
And introduced the first time.
Introduced the first time, yeah. And at this time, he's really just a cute he's just another Dick Grayson clone. He's got a big smile on his face with dimples, and when he first meets Superman in the after John Byrne writes him, you'll notice that they meet. Superman and Batman meet. This is like one of their first meetings, but Batman is investigating the book that Superman found in Lex Luthor's possession. And he says, well, the only thing I can tell from this is that you're Clark Kent. So this is when they're first meeting for the first time, and Jason Todd is with him, and he's just this wide-eyed and bushy-tailed Robin. And then right after that, they changed him to be this mean street kid with a whole different origin. So this origin gets scrapped later, but I don't know. I found this really moving and dramatic at the time. But
did they change his? I have to ask, is that when they changed his hair color too? Because he's like a redhead here, and that doesn't.
By
the time he appears, he's dyed his hair black as Robin, and that was a while later. So this is the first appearance of him as Robin. This is an alternate costume idea they were going for. I kind of like the cowl fit into the mask. It kind of obscures his face more. But I don't really like the little, what would you call this? A Harlequin type?
It looks like it's a riff on the Golden Age Batgirl suit.
It kind of does. And yeah, it kind of has some, it's got these weird boots and everything. It's an interesting take. By the time he appears, he's just wearing the old Robin outfit again.
Yeah.
I am far more paying attention to the fact that this is clearly the origin of the Tim Drake costume.
Yeah.
Got pants.
Yeah.
The pants and the belt are about where the similarities stop. But.
Yeah. And the bulk of this story is all of Batman's villains. They go and counter them, fight them in groups of 3 and 4. I have to show one more thing, just as I mentioned up at the very front in that group shot. One of my favorites is Killer Moth. He doesn't get enough respect, but look at that! Look at that headpiece. The headpiece is it's a imposing, threatening headpiece, and the costume is just garish and awful. And if you recolored this in a more downtone outfit, it's not a bad villain outfit. But anyway,
it's also got one of my absolute favorite villains that never really got his due. And he's never really been treated the same way as Gentleman Ghost.
I love Gentleman Ghost. Yeah. He actually, I loved. He showed up. I think it was JSA. He became like a pretty major villain for a short little while, and I enjoyed that.
But when Batman fought him, you never knew if he was a ghost or a guy with gimmicks, because he would do these things you couldn't explain that only a ghost could do. But then it'd be like, oh, look, here's a projector that was left on the ground.
So he was the original Mysterio.
Well, he disappears in this story because the gang he's fighting with get defeated, but you don't see what happened to him at all. Like it's almost like a plot hole. It's like what happened to Gentleman Ghost, and right there. Yeah, it's like I think is it there?
Not this
the group
one.
He was with?
No, because it's a little bit further down, but
it's later. The
Gentleman Ghost gets out of a car. That's what I noticed as I'm reading this. One of the 4 getting out of the car is a ghost. and then later he's not shown as being defeated. Actually, I don't know how they would defeat Clayface either, but they've just punched Clayface out, I guess. So that would be a little bit further down. I know exactly which scene you're talking about because I was looking at the same thing.
I think it's is that the last moment you see him? Yeah, and then
there's the Ghost. And then the very next thing you see is Yeah, they're all defeated. Here we go.
This right there, and he is surprised. He is markedly absent.
Yep,
he ghosted them.
I noticed that too. He ghosted,
so, which is kind of, I guess, if you're playing with that sort of like is he, isn't he? That's actually cleverly handled. That's nifty. But I'm with you, RJ. I do like Gentleman Ghost. He's cool.
Yeah. One of my favorite moments is coming up where he backs into. It's like this is Killer Croc just unleashing a mighty swing. Batman ducks, and it knocks Joker absolutely loopy. Just fries his brain.
Yep. That's like a Three Stooges scene right there.
Right, yeah, exactly.
It is, but it just looks painful.
He's got everything except bluebirds floating around his head.
Right, yeah. Woo, yeah, the cuckoo noises.
One of my guilty pleasures is seeing Joker in any state of undesirableness.
But I need to add to that there's a little there's some good things to like about this book. As a celebration of everything Batman at the time, it's got a little bit of everything for you, and that's something that I think that readers can very much enjoy. So if you're looking for a Batman of this period or any kind of Batman story that just kind of tries to cram everything possible, this is your book. However, there are a couple of weaknesses that some of that in the story, and that I do think need to be mentioned, and some of them lead to some funny kind of moments. And one of the problems is on this panel, so I'll bring it up. You have that moment where Joker backs up into Croc's punch, and it's like, Three Stooges, and then like a couple panels later, you have the reveal of Killer Croc has murdered and orphaned Jason Todd's parents. He's murdered Jason. He's made an orphan out of Jason Todd, and there's just a bit of tonal dissonance there, where you have Three Stooges gag, utter murder, and it's like. And the emotional roller coaster creates a little bit of whiplash, because you're like, am I supposed to be laughing that he just got clocked? Oh wait, we're supposed to be like having this almost Return of the Jedi moment, as Luke is like having an enraged, wailing on the guy, and Jason Todd starts just wailing on the guy who just killed his parents. Yeah, like those beads, the sweat or tears mixture of both, and it's a little too much for the amount of space that they're milking it for. So that's one weakness, I would say, that tonal whiplash. The second weakness is one that I think is funny, which is the fact that because the story is putting everything possible, they cram not only the rogues gallery, but they cram a bunch of Batman's love interests. And so you get it's one issue, but you get like three of his like love interests, all like, trying to take a bite out of Bruce Wayne, essentially, and it's kind of humorous.
In fairness, there's just the two that are really interacting with Batman. Vicky Vale is off panel setting up a different story.
Yep.
She shows up in like 2 pages, and that's actually setting up just a different story.
The point still remains that for a story that has the entire rogues gallery and the entire of the time, I guess the entire romance rogues gallery,
and all three sidekicks as well.
There is a point where the book starts to feel extremely overstuffed, and most of the time it kind of is okay. But when you have like the scene here where it's like he's got like
why is Catwoman driving Talia away? And why are they wearing dresses?
The two love interests who are competing for Bruce have to drive away together because they took the same car. Like they're carpooling. We hate each other.
They're driving to Metropolis to meet Lana and Lois for coffee.
And they even threaten each other.
That's the only way. That has to be the truth. I think RJ, I think you're really onto something. I want to read that comic. If Kelly Sue DeConnick could write that comic, I would buy it.
Oh gosh.
Don't let her near the action characters, but I really want to see her write 4 catty women complain about guys for just 20 pages. That's it.
If I may touch on a few last things, and I'll let you guys, I noticed the tonal shifts are there. You're right. And I did like the fact that the two love interests both know that he is Bruce Wayne and show up in the Batcave. So, so that's interesting that they both know that. And what I like, Dick Grayson wants to adopt Jason Todd. And that's how much he has grown as a person. He's like 20 years old. He wants to adopt him. And I thought that's an interesting little subplot that they never touch on again. But it's like, this is, how much Dick Grayson has grown as a person. He feels like an adult.
Which also
reflects this kid in.
Which also reflects really strongly on Bruce, because if Dick is at the point where it's like, I can kind of do this, then it shows how much he's grown under Bruce's tutelage, which shows how much of a good father figure he was. And I think that's an important point to bring up. I'm glad you're bringing this up, because I know that later writers have sometimes hit the that note over and over again about how bad of a parental figure that Bruce was, or they try to be like, he's a terrible father figure, he's just the worst. And here you get to see that not only was he a good father figure, he was such a good father figure, he inspired another person to want to be a good father figure. And there's that kind of lineage of that. And that's a pretty good moment. It's a small moment, but it's a good one.
It's also really interesting too, because it kind of juxtaposes what the girls were talking about, right? It's like, Talia's like, you need to be free to, explore your passions. And then Selina's like, he just doesn't want to be vulnerable. And it's like, well, neither of you girls are really ready for Bruce Wayne, because in the next thing we see that he's settled and vulnerable is just like, you guys aren't in the club.
This is entirely before the Bruce, before the Batman is a psychotic who is a terrible parent figure. That all came with Frank Miller. And I'm sorry to say, because it's, up until then, he was, even when Jason, what's his name? I'm sorry. When Tim Drake comes along, I was reading the Obia Man story. That's the one that killed off his mom. If you read that now, it looks so jarring, because you hear Bruce like in his thought bubbles, he really cares for Tim, and he really cares about what's going on, and it's like this bears no resemblance to the Batman of today.
Well, and I think
the a-hole Batman, as many people call him,
I think in fairness to Frank, to Miller's, especially year one, he's writing a Batman who's like young, super young, getting his bearings, figuring it all out, dealing with this concept of obsession and justice, and he's just starting out. Whereas this point, this is 20 years later, or 15 years later at the least, right? So it's one of those where it's a long ways past. And I think that's one of the frameworks that get left out of that conversation, is that, you can have a really troubled, broken man who, like, through helping people gets fixed. Like, that's a real arc. And I think there's room for that in those stories, and even acknowledging what Miller was doing with it, but without taking it. I don't know. People in the late 80s didn't want to see happy endings, I guess.
This is also the issue where Batgirl finally figures out that they are Batman and Robin, and just addresses them for the first time in Secret Identities, and that was a long time coming. From the 60s
Man, they
onward,
did cram stuff into this.
Yeah,
there's a lot going on.
Yeah,
so,
and
From
one of
the
the things
introduction of the new Robin, the whole big, this is one of the big all my enemies against me ideas. They've done that from time to time. I liked it. I liked seeing it here, even if a lot of the villains are really lame, especially at this time. But I like that. I like the resolution of the Killer Croc storyline. I was looking forward to. I mean, he was a good new villain. I'd really like to see them do more with it. And then you've got the love interests. You've got Talia. The whole time Talia is just like, this would be so perfect if we were just together. And she's constantly like, nothing can be said without her sticking that in there. She's just always wanting to lure Bruce Wayne over to her. So
I think
do with Robin. Kill him.
You're right.
I think it was the
ahead.
addition of the romance gallery on top of the rogues gallery that made me just kind of laugh a little bit and just be like, really? Who's next? The clown gallery? Oh wait, they're there too.
Who says Infinity War is the most ambitious crossover?
There's a lot going on in this one.
There
like I
you
said,
go. There's Vicky Vale.
Yeah, Vicky Vale has and then it's
Vicky Vale.
And there's the clown. Like I said, I wasn't joking about that.
Wait a second. The clown. Yeah, that's the circus clown though.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then you have the Joker too. So the clown gallery is here as well.
The other thing is the result of all this is that this has got to be the earliest versions of about 90% of these characters that I've ever seen.
Which ones?
Everybody except Batman, Dick, Jason. No, sorry. Everyone but
Had to
Batman
be the earliest
and
version
Robin.
of Jason.
Yeah, sorry. Batman, Robin, Batgirl, Joker. And I think that's it.
I will say, if you want to see a really interesting Killer Moth,
Mm-hmm.
I just found out that this existed and I watched it, and it's not on YouTube. It's on that other video platform that people put, Daily Motion. They apparently made a Batgirl pilot to introduce the character, and Killer Moth was the villain. And it's set in the library. It's a really, really interesting. If you like the Batman 66, you have to see this just to complete your mental library.
Well, that's actually really interesting because the original Batgirl story was also a Killer Moth story, and they referenced that in Batgirl Year One that Chuck Dixon went back and did. So Chuck Dixon and
I have that
wrote
book.
it with.
All right, so before we move on to the next one, Wilford Brimley has shown up. Oh no, it's the guys who actually enjoy comics. One's actually teaching a class about them. Oh, I would not know anything about that. Dave Asanowitz is here. Newsprint and basic colors are so beautiful. The metal's here, dabbing in chat, and Mrs. H is here saying tee hee. So
I want to point out that earlier Dave said no, Matman.
He did.
Oh my gosh.
Which I appreciate, but I didn't put on the screen. But I did see it.
Well, I'm going to stop sharing. This is one of my favorite stories ever. I was really close on picking another one because it had Elongated Man in it. It was also Detective Comics, but I really had to go. When this one is the first one that pops into my head every time you say, what's your first favorite story? I figure I have to go with it. Even if, in some respects it's dated, and in some respects it's a little corny, and there's things that you wouldn't do with Batman now. I like this Batman who has weakness and he has self-doubt, and there's a lot of things that they just never show in modern Batman comics that way.
What number was that again, Hutch?
526.
526. I love that there was a pretty good balance between strength and weakness. Like they're showing some vulnerability, but the issue starts off with Batman punching through a punching bag and going, Alfred, we need better punching bags because I'm punching them so hard. And so you get to really see the superhero like demonstrating his power before he gets launched against this challenge of the entire Rogues Gallery. And it's a really good setup. I'm going to keep that in mind because it's like, you want to show your hero displaying a feat of strength before you challenge him. Because if you show him just like weak and then here come the villains, I don't know, it doesn't amp the stakes as well. So that was a pretty cool, although there are certain things where it's like, oh, that's hasn't aged as well, maybe. I think there's still a lot of even structural lessons we can learn from these older stories that can inform how we tell stories today. I loved that opening, just a couple panels. Here's Batman punching through a punching bag. Oh yeah, he's ready for action. Bring on the onslaught of bad guys. I like that setup.
So question then, do you wish that, or would you, prefer to have seen this version of Jason continue throughout the next several decades?
I would. I realize we probably wouldn't have Death in the Family if people didn't hate him, but I really like it, and the way that they were ready to go with a new costume, and then they chickened out and just went with the old one. I kind of would have liked to have seen a new costume for the Jason Todd version.
I have to agree. I look at reading back through this. I really liked it a lot more than when I first read this comic 15 years ago, right? And I don't know exactly what it was about it. It's probably more than 15. It doesn't matter. But I felt like, because I really like, one of the first comics I bought when I decided this was me was I got a reprint of those 3 Max Allen Collins issues that kind of are the arc for Jason to become Robin after
post-crisis,
the Dark Knight, post-crisis, right? Yeah. And after year 1, because you have those year 1 branches, and it was in the main Batman title, and then the next 4 issues are they introduce Jason Todd, and then they have Jason become Robin in that next 4 issues. And I always liked that Jason. I understood how he never got over stuff and didn't grow up enough and made himself, didn't have quite the time to grow enough to face the challenges to not end up dead. Like, I always thought that his death was a tragedy, right? From somebody being a kid and not dealing with all that. So I liked the way that shook out, and Lonely Place of Dying is such an amazing story. That you couldn't have it without Jason having a tragic death, right? So it was one of those things where
I wish they'd left him dead.
I do wish they left him dead. Everything.
Minority opinion. I kind of like Red Hood.
I wouldn't mind Red Hood if he was just Tommy Monaghan, because that's all they can do with him is Hitman. They can only do a bad imitation of Hitman.
Well, I need to interrupt. Interruption time. Drum roll. We have our new pickle. Mrs. H has supplied it. Here we go. Alrighty. So,
oh my!
I can zoom in a bit there. There we go. Oh,
it's a sad bat pickle. But what's he saying?
He is saying, okay, hold on. If I zoom in, I can. There we go.
I watched. I know your pain. Or you knew your parents?
You knew your parents?
That's amazing.
So that's the trauma comparisons. Looks like we have a new mascot, boys and girls.
Well, you know what I love about these images is that for a split second I forgot they were supposed to be pickles, and I'm just seeing Batman's jutting jaw here.
It's got an enormous jaw.
The metal says, Mrs. H, need a pickle, going, pickle me this, Batman. Wilford Brimley says, I am so glad that Reese decided to be different this week and grow his hair long with his beard. There's a lot of beards here.
Yeah.
I mean, have you seen...
Who is this Wilford Brimley guy?
So, I mean...
Diabetes.
Wilford, inflation. This is just an answer to inflation. Razors are expensive.
That's also true.
There we go. All righty.
Although I haven't bought razors in probably 3 years, but anyway. So the thing is, back to what I was saying I liked what they were doing with Jason more than I remembered liking it, and even in reading that story through, it flashed me back to reading some of the Invasion tie-ins and other stuff where Jason is Robin, and just like how, I mean, he's supposed to be younger too, but just how genuine they wrote him, So yeah, I don't know. I feel really conflicted because post-crisis Jason sets up so many amazing things that were in place when I was starting to read comics. But pre-crisis Jason, I don't know. I think he's a better guy.
The Nocturna storyline is really good to understand the relationship between Bruce and Jason, because that was that whole custody battle.
I was reading about that. Yeah, but
DC owed me $1.99 because I paid money to kill Jason Todd, and they brought him back, so I want my money back.
Well,
with inflation, with adjusted for inflation.
Yes, exactly.
With interest.
Well, here's a question.
May I just mention there was a I don't remember which Joker-based story it was, but there's a story where, like, we're seeing how Joker sees the world. I don't remember how, whether he could make things happen or whatever, but you see a room where there's all three Robins, and there's like, one is a little kid, and I forget, one's a brat, and then there's just a skeleton holding a sign that says, "Why didn't you call?" Which is
wow.
Yeah.
Actually, we're gonna actually the dead Jason Todd thing is gonna show up at least once more during our discussion. Which let's move on to the next one. Let's RJ. Let's talk about your pick.
Oh, my pick.
Before
I
we
do not have.
Move on. A quick question from the chat. Sorry, RJ, to interrupt you there. But was Jason Todd around for the Judas contract? I think
so.
He may have been.
Not as a participant.
Yeah, just like in a couple of issues and out a couple of issues, right?
Because I know for a fact that Dick Grayson was Nightwing by then.
Yeah.
He comes in and saves
fact,
them
was the
as
start of
Nightwing.
Yeah, like that's the very beginning part of the storyline is where he decides, like, or just before the storyline where he's like, I'm done being Robin.
Yep.
Done being the last half of Batman and
issue 38 of New Teen Titans is when Kid Flash and Robin give up their costumes. And then like 4 issues later is when they debuted Nightwing. Yeah.
When you get Disco Nightwing, best costume ever.
Because I was gonna say, if Grayson here is like literally old enough to be adopting a kid and becoming his father, he is way too old to be running around in those green trunks. Just saying.
That's a fair argument.
I hope Nightwing is on the way soon.
I am fine with the trunks. What are you talking about? If you've seen the rest of the Rogues Gallery, there's literally a guy who's dressed up like D'Artagnan from the Three Musketeers.
The Cavalier.
So anyway, RJ, walk us through your pick.
I am looking to see if I couldn't find it online real fast. I still can't, so I don't have a PDF to share with you.
I can pull images. Give me a second. I think I have yours pulled up. Yeah. Give me a second.
Good.
I'll pull the cover.
Because this is the best Batman story ever told with the best Batman villain ever created, and the villain only lasted this issue. Yes, I know they brought back another one. Not the same. Batman Special number 1, 1984 for $1.25 for an 80-page giant. This was written by... Got to go in a couple of pages to get this thing. This was written by the great and wonderful Mike W. Barr and drawn by Michael Golden and Mike DiCarlo. And I just, when you get to the splash page, the splash pagery on this, this sets it all up. This is the title was The Player on the Other Side. And what Barr did was he said, what if you have this kid whose parents are crooks and they're killed in front of him by a cop. And he devotes the rest of his life to learning how to fight the law.
But the law won.
Yeah, well, the law did win because this is Earth 1. And the cop that killed his parents was a young James Gordon. So there's that tie in here. But he's basically the anti-Batman before Prometheus. And Prometheus doesn't really count because he had computer chips and discs. And
I like the idea of the character conceptually. I'm not a fan of the outfit. Gotta admit.
Yeah, well, he was called the Wrath, so he's got a big W on his face.
Yeah, I get that.
So he's Waluigi.
Right.
Yeah,
He's Waluigi.
Yes. He's Wario or
he's Watman.
Yeah, he's Wabatman.
It was done to create the same silhouette in certain places.
Right. Yeah. I can see what they were going for. By golly, that's hard on the eyes. And it's for the people who love to accuse Batman of being gay, you have like the pink Batman here. It's not helping.
It's if Batman's costume designer was the same guy that put Magneto's costume together.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not pink in my book. It's more of a purplish color with like, well, even the cover of the book, it's brown.
Yeah, that's better. That's better.
was much better. I don't know why it came out purple and
purple's not gay.
Oh, Hutch
I don't think so.
Hutch with the own.
Metal says the longer I look at this, the more I start to like it.
I don't know what that says about you, Metal, but we're gonna keep moving.
But,
okay. Sorry, everybody. I'm being admonished from the chat. Neo points out Wario has a W.
That's what I said. I said Wario. I said Wario. Yeah.
Well,
Hey,
you
it doesn't
mentioned
matter.
too, the upside down L that I had
Right.
forgotten about the L part.
It doesn't matter because both of them wear purple.
Yeah.
this is true.
All right, let's because like the idea of the character, and he's shown to be pretty threatening. Walk us through, RJ, what goes on in this story. Basic pitch here.
He comes to Gotham because this is his ultimate revenge. He wants to kill James Gordon, and it's up to Batman, of course, to figure out what this guy's about, what he's up to, because he's killing cops. That's what he's about. He's about killing cops. But he's just as good as Batman is at the detection stuff. So when Commissioner Gordon is put into hiding, he draws out Batman by going and demolishing the graves of Thomas and Martha Wayne.
Oh.
And he leaves this spray painted message on here: "Give me CG." And the tenders of the cemetery, they're like, it's a bunch of drug people references, and only Batman.
Give me Comicsgate. When was this written?
Yes,
Yes.
Give me
This is going on a t-shirt
computer
now.
graphics.
Give me CG. But Bruce in his thought bubbles is like, it's Commissioner Gordon. This guy knows who I am. We've got serious problems. And of course, the very first thing he does is call Alfred, because he's like, well,
RJ, before you get too much further, you're forgetting like this really important thing. Reese, can you pull up my image? This is Batman wielding a gun. Like a full on, with a scope and everything. So if
but
you
it's
want
not Batman. It's the Wrath.
I know. Yeah, sure. Okay. This is basically what if Batman had gun and scope and killed cops.
This is also some kind of Star Wars blaster.
It's the same gun that's on the cover. I mean, come on.
Well, yeah.
No,
This
it is true. This is gun drawn by somebody who doesn't shoot guns.
What year was this again?
Right.
1984.
Yep, that's after Star Wars. So
yeah, everything was a blaster. This is the first Michael Golden I think I've seen, and it was one of the things that really drew me to it was that it was such a deviation away from house style DC comics. This was definitely not Jim Aparo or Neil Adams or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
The coloring was done, the penciling was done in sort of a stipple effect in a lot of places. Particularly whenever they did.
Walk us through that. You said stipple effect. Can you walk us through like on a page what that means?
Yeah. Here.
Well, like the shadow of Batman there.
This is the Wrath's girl. Yeah, the shadow is very stippled there too. But the Wrath's girlfriend.
Well, give me a second. I'll pull the page. Give me a second. Which page is that?
They didn't number them.
Just tell me. Just show me the panel again, and I'll pull it up. All right, that's
his girlfriend is pretty much a Nagel painting.
Gotcha. Okay, give me a second. I will pull it up.
do you think this was inspired
Who's
by
the artist
Kirby
on
Crackle?
this again? Sorry.
Michael Golden.
Here we go. All right, I got it pulled up.
Who I think went on to do some Daredevil after this.
All right, so you're saying what about the stippling? You said.
Well, now see, it doesn't really translate on these PDFs because these have been recolored. That's why he said such a purple and pink thing.
But I think that
look at the
building
wallpaper
at top
behind her.
looks like it has it.
The wallpaper behind her is an example of it, I think.
So for the non-artists, walk us through stippling and what it adds to the image.
Stippling is when you draw a solid object and you don't ever draw a line. You just do it with dots. I wish I had some of Marty Klubeck's posters with me now because he drew entire female figures with nothing but stippling.
Can you zoom in on the bricks on the panel 1 on that page? There's actually a really good effect on that on the edges of the bricks.
Panel 1.
Right there.
All right, let me see if I can zoom in here.
Yeah, you see how the texturing of the bricks is like different from brick to brick. It's not just they're red.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them have a darker shadow. Some of them have lighter. It's almost like the city pollution has stuck to the bricks.
So you're talking like, and in the building underneath it with all the dots. We're talking about just the
and under his word balloon.
Yep,
to the left of him there, and then the building underneath of him too. Also, all the dots in the coloring. That's even better example of the texture that's added to this picture by the way of the
Okay. So so you're talking about the fact that this is adding a lot of texture, which also adds a lot of grit, which for Gotham City would be a really good thematic decision.
The poor inker.
Okay, gotcha.
Well, the inker was the artist. Michael Golden did the pencils and the inks.
All right. No, thank you for that. That's really informative, and I think that's a really interesting point to bring up, especially for, like I said, a Gotham book. Help add some additional darkness to it. Wilfred brilliantly says, "You should see the brickwork in hell. Talk about pollution." It's just a kilns down there. There's endless kilns. All right, so sorry. We diverted back from we diverted off the trail there of Wrath was using detective work to track down Gordon.
He figured out who Batman was, left him, the threatening message, and Batman leaves the cemetery. And first thing he does, of course, he gets on the phone to Alfred and says, "Hey, we have a problem. Take cover." And Alfred's on the other end of the phone. And of course, the way comics are, that conversation gets cut off in the middle of a speech, and Batman's like, "Alfred," and then it's like, and I didn't look to see. They didn't show the exact kind of phone, but this was a symbol of how rich Bruce Wayne was that he had a phone in his car. Remember, this is 1984. This is not, reach in your pocket and pull out your phone. This was you reading this comic like, holy cow, he's got a phone.
He's got a yeah. I remember the first time when I had a friend who had his dad owned a ranch and he had a car phone. It was like, what is this magic technology in, the early 90s? This guy must be, this guy must be super loaded.
Where did Matt go?
Oh, he must have had his second daily crash.
No. I just wanted to get up and check something out.
Oh, okay. Right.
Meanwhile, the girlfriend and the thuggies are out, paying people off to do jobs. And nothing says 80s, much like Don Johnson here standing in front of this car. If that doesn't date this picture, nothing else does. And her combed forward coif while she's wearing the black leather. This is this is very much an 80s style book.
Yep. Pat Benatar.
Yeah, very Pat Benatar.
Yeah, if there's any other images, RJ, just let me know where they are. I will pull them up for you, so you don't have to.
I can't think of any other images that I'm going to want to pull up here, but he doesn't make it. And she's crying her eyes out for him.
What I thought was interesting was at the conclusion of this story, they had that whole plot point of Jim Gordon has at least it's purported culpability in making an orphan out of the Wrath. And at the end of the story, they don't do anything with that from Gordon's point of view.
Well, and part of it is because the Wrath never explicitly says anything. He just is like so incensed constantly.
Sure.
So like Gordon and Batman are like, well, what was that all about? Hell if I know.
Right, exactly. That's how it ends. It's like, it's literally just like, I don't know. He's just crazy psycho killing cops. They never had that moment where like Gordon had to confront, oh yes, I killed your parents, but or it's tortured me every day since. Like that's you could just imagine that scene if this were in a television show. Or of
course I was a cop and they were shooting at me. But
right, exactly. Or him to say, I had to do what I had to do because, I was being shot at, or actually your parents were psycho serial killers and that's why I had to stop them. And you've just turned out to be just as bad as they are. Just, those types of twists and turns. And instead of any of that, we got, what was his problem? And it was like,
can't tell you. But the full ending of this makes a lot more impact when you realize, if you're familiar with the Silver Age of Batman, because we all know the Batman origin. Saw my parents die in front of me. Cops are there, take the bodies away. Jim Gordon takes young Bruce Wayne. Well, in the Silver Age, that's not what happened. there was Leslie Tompkins that found Bruce there and, cared for him and took him in, and she, knows his identity. And that's how this story ends here, is the Wrath's girlfriend is distraught that, he's gone. He's dead. What do I do now? He was my everything. And who's on the scene but Leslie Tompkins? And she's pulling the whole, putting her arms around her, putting the blanket around her. I'll be here to care for you kind of thing that she did with Bruce.
I do have to interject, though, that for the world's greatest detective, you think Batman might ask their girlfriend, hey, what was the motive for your crazy psycho boyfriend in trying to kill Jim Gordon, maybe? And they didn't really think to ask her. So I was like, really? She's right there. You could just say, hey.
The problem with
why did
writing your character as a genius is you often have to be the genius that you're writing.
Right.
Yes.
All right, so I did pull that last image because I do think it's a really good one because it ends on a pretty good note. This is Leslie Tompkins, and she's comforting.
I remember talking about Leslie Tompkins being there at the same time as Jim Gordon, and I think that they talk about that in, I can't remember what book I was thinking that was in. So I remember Leslie Tompkins being a big part of things. When I first started getting into Batman, but
but at the Silver Age, it was never Jim Gordon.
It was never Jim.
Young Bruce Wayne.
Yeah,
he wasn't there.
So in this story, I don't think Tompkins knows Bruce's identity yet. Yeah, because
no. In this one, she definitely does because she knew it all through the 70s.
There's a moment where the Batman says, "Oh, there was something that gave me the illusion that she didn't know." But
he's talking to her in public.
Okay.
Oh, maybe that's what it is.
Maybe that's probably what it is.
True.
I guess I didn't pick public out when I was reading it. I was just like, because they also mentioned that, like, in this continuity as it is, Alfred doesn't know why Bruce goes out the 26th of June every year or where he goes. And so I'm like,
really? You don't?
Yeah.
They doesn't mean something to you?
You couldn't have even figured it out?
Remember, Alfred was not the one who raised him until after the Batman movie kind of did that.
Well, and I think Alfred raised him in year one. Because I think
but Silver Age, you're right. It was his father who was the butler.
That.
Yeah.
Because Alfred was an actor.
Right. It was because I think in year one,
actually before that, Dark Knight Returns.
Oh, okay.
His flashback to his childhood, Alfred is there serving them.
Okay.
So that was kind of moved him back even before that. Although of course Dark Knight Returns was not canon, but you know what I mean. Right. Pretty much that part of it was canon. That now Alfred is there even when he's a child.
It is interesting that the cross-pollination you get between the movies, where they, influence each other that way. Alrighty, so any final thoughts on Batman Special?
Yeah, I have one. I think that woman is actually Sean Young from the what's it called, Blade Runner. I mean, seriously, I think it's almost go get some pictures from Blade Runner to draw.
Well, I think Hutch is right.
About what?
That it's that the model that the artist used is Sean Young.
Sean Young. Okay, all right.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, yeah. There's the whole femme fatale aspect to her character. That wouldn't be too far from the Hitler. All right, so chat. We got Neostar is having some questions here. Remember the Wrath showed up in the Batman cartoon once before he's killed by Joker Venom. And Neostar says, what was it? He had a question about has there been any good stories where Batman fought Black Spider? Hutch, that's my.
Yeah, there were.
RJ's got one.
I don't know the number, but I mean I remember reading them when I was a kid. They were the detective comics in the early 80s. And Black Spider was a hero gone bad, really. I mean, because his whole motivation was he wanted to take down drug dealers because they had pushed on his brother and overdosed him, and he was going to clean up the city. He was just doing it. He was doing it Punisher style. So he was taking out bad guys, doing it lethally. And Batman's like, not in my city.
So there's your answer, Neostar. Wilford Brimley says, I want Twitless to write a how-to, one that shows writers how to make smart characters when the writer is as dumb as a glue stick.
So I actually know I believe I know the answer to that. Right. So the trick to being smart isn't that you're more capable, it's that you're faster. So if you're a writer who's not a genius and you need to write a genius, you just got to take a lot of time to write your story and do lots of research and run it by people and all that kind of stuff. It's about taking the time that goes into it, because I think it's speed that's really the difference between a smart person and a not quite as smart person.
There you go.
So the
editors like somebody on time.
So in other words, you're saying if you're slow, you have to be slow.
I'm going to be picky, and nah, we're not going to do that. We could spend an hour talking about the difference between a clever character, a strategic character, and a genius character, and how they're not the same thing.
We should do that.
The point is, whether you have intelligence, charisma, or wisdom, you have to be able to role play the character.
Sure. All righty. Okay. So cool. Cool beans. Cool. These are good stories so far. So Reese, let's okay. Want to talk about yours?
Yeah, for sure. So I have probably the most biased story of anyone here, right? And I've written about this. You can read about it over on idealcomics.net. All sorts of stuff. I've talked about it on stream before. But this comic, Batman 459, is the very first regular monthly Batman comic that I ever bought. And I had started buying comics in 1990, looking at some Disney stuff and some Dick Tracy and some Green Hornet, and I was just kind of playing around with it, but I wasn't sure this was going to be my thing, right? And I read this comic, and it just hit me in the teeth, man. It hit me so hard that it's weird to say this about a 22-page floppy comic on newsprint, but this actually changed my life. So yeah, let's talk about it. So basically, it is kind of a run-of-the-mill story. Batman is out on a patrol. Commissioner Gordon has the night off, and he is taking a girl out on a date, right? And meanwhile, we also get introduced to a family, a mom and a dad and their little boy, and they want to take their kid out to the movie, and they're going to go watch the Mark of Zorro, the old Douglas Fairbanks picture. And because this dad loves Zorro, and he wants to introduce his kid to Zorro, and the kid's just like, I'm busy reading a Not Ninja Turtles comic, Dad. I don't want to go to the movies. So yeah, what is the name of the comic? I can't remember the name of the comic he's reading, and it's like the prepubescent kung fu cockroaches or something like that.
Oh, it's that. I gotcha.
Yeah. It's definitely.
Oh yeah. That's
Preteen Kung Fu Cockroach. Karate.
Right. Yeah. There's no reference to any well-known franchises.
I love those. There's so many of them now.
Except for Zorro.
And so the kid's just like, there are these moments that seem unrelated to the rest of the action. So in the Batman portion of the movie, of the comic, Batman is chasing down a gang of a street gang that have been dealing drugs throughout the Alan Grant, Norm Brayfoggle's run on Detective, and when they switched over into Batman, there's this gang called, I think the Street Devils, if I remember right, and they've been dealing dope, but it's been happening in between panels. So for those of you guys who don't know this, here's a thing. So back in the 70s and 80s and 90s, there were a lot of writers they would stick around comics on a particular title for as many years as they could. And so guys like Chris Claremont and Chuck Dixon and Alan Grant, these guys, and others too, but they would put like a page or 2 pages of teasing, just like the Vicky Vale stuff we were talking about earlier in the other book, that leads into a whole different story. And it's a tease to set up what's going to happen, in 2 months, in 6 months, in a year down the way from this story. And they're just these little teases that would be in there. And then that you get a payoff later on.
A plot and B plot. Yeah.
A plot,
and then
A
the
plot,
B plot
plot
becomes the A plot. Yeah.
And in fact, so these guys, they had been like the B plot or C plot several times. They'd shown up in, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So I had not been introduced to all of this yet. So this was like the 7th comic I ever bought, right? But as I'm going through this, it's like it's Batman's hunting down this street gang, and it's kind of coming to a culmination of this other stuff. And so he's tracking it down, is going on, and and it's just it's getting cool. So meanwhile, while this is going on, also Jim Gordon, who is old, who has been having problems with a really persistent cough, his wife had divorced him many years before, and so he runs into this girl he used to know who's moved back to town, and so they're having a night out, and they're talking about the old days, and they're talking about all kinds of stuff. And I did not realize, 11-year-old me or whatever it was, did not realize that this was supposed to be the girl he had an affair with 20 years previously. So, because I didn't even know that it happened.
Batman Year One, Batman Year One hadn't even happened yet, had it?
No, it happened. It was Batman Year One was 86, 87. And then this was 1990.
Well, let's walk through, like, why was this issue so special to you personally? Like, walk through the impact here.
Right. So I want to set up all the different plots that were going on. So one of the things that was really impactful for me was seeing how all of and then at the end of the story, these 3 strands of story all intersect in a moment, right? And so like the one of the gangbangers who gets away from Batman tries to take the family hostage outside of Zorro, which was the movie Batman was going to with his parents when he died. So there's all of this kind of stuff. And Batman had kind of seen they were showing Zorro at the Retro Theater, and he's like, well, that's weird. And so it ties into Batman's origin, and it's painting a Batman that's not some sort of broken guy, but he's got a history. So he's chasing down this guy, and all of a sudden the family shows up, the mom and the dad and the kid, while Batman's chasing him, and Batman's put in this position, am I going to endanger this family? And then Jim Gordon shows up, right? And so then you have this great resolution where the bad guy gets caught, the family is safe. Batman inspires the kid because he's like, Zorro's my favorite movie. And so then the kid's like, I got to go back and watch Zorro again. Right? And then so you have this wonderful, shiny, happy, fuzzy moment, right? Where everything's worked out and you've had this thrilling ride and you've got to see some detective stuff, some fighting stuff, this amazing art by Norm Brayfogle and Steve Mitchell, who are just like nailing every image in this comic book, right? And then the very last page, spoiler for a 30-year-old comic, the very last page, like the next to last page, Sarah and Gordon, they have this little kiss and they part their ways, and Gordon grabs a cigarette and he lights it up and said, maybe there's a tomorrow, and then maybe there's something worth hoping for, and then all of a sudden, heart attack.
Yep.
And Gordon,
that's what I thought that was leading to. I remember Gordon that story.
Hits the ground, and then the very last page, he pans away, right? And the go. Can you flip it one page over?
Do you want me to pull it? Okay.
Yeah, and there's the scene, right? And the bat is in the foreground. Gordon is under the street light, and it's just everything was warm and comforting, and like there was some resolution to the world, and all of a sudden it snaps you into a bigger picture where there are real stakes in this comic book, where people are living real lives that have weight. And so that reinforces the danger that the family was in and that they had a resolution, and it reinforces the legitimacy within the context of the story of Batman's mission. But also, Batman can't save everyone. Batman can't stop, 50 years of fast food and smokes from taking its toll on Jim Gordon, right? Yeah. And it's just like, oh my God, this little 11-year-old Reese is like, what happens next? Right?
This is so you. It really is, because like for most people would see the story and go, this is basically filler. But I'm just saying. But
it was good filler back then.
I'm just saying.
And I was just let
me finish.
I was gobsmacked. I'm still gobsmacked talking about it.
The thing that I think appeals to you is you are such a person that loves world building. So it's not just the character, it's the fact that the character resides in a living, breathing world. And I really think that, and knowing you, I think that's something that's very important. And so I think that is part, or maybe largely so from what I'm seeing, of what drew you in. It wasn't just Batman, it's Batman's world. And the fact that it's larger than him. Yeah, you're not. Okay.
Right. So like, I raced down. I was like, okay, so I started reading the letter column, and I read the cover off of this book, right? But then I was checking all the letter column out, and I'm just like, okay, so when can I find out what happens to Commissioner Gordon? Because like I grew up with Commissioner Gordon on the TV and the '66 reruns and all that kind of stuff. So I was invested in him not being dead, right? He's not dead, right? He's not dead, right? I'm 11. You're not going to kill Commissioner Gordon on me, right?
Hey, they did use his hospital bed image for an anti-smoking campaign.
He just said what I was going to say.
Yeah. So and Aparo drew that, and so then I was like, okay, Detective Comics comes out in 2 weeks, and so I was at the store with Detective Comics, and Gordon's in the hospital on one page, and that's it. And Batman's really upset about it, and I'm like, was he going to die or what? What's going on? So then the next 2 weeks I was there for another issue of Batman, and he's not even mentioned. And they bring in like and that's when they start. That was the issue where I think it was that issue where they start in with the they have the guy who's blowing up chunks of Gotham City to reveal the old architecture. And
because I wanted it to look like the movie. Oh god!
And Anton Furst did such amazing buildings, and I think it was a positive move because Gotham before that was kind of generic, and all of a sudden you've got these ridiculous neo-Gothic structures everywhere that were what Gotham looked through the '90s, and
Batman '89 had a really strong aesthetic impact. And some of that is for the better.
Yeah. So anyway, but I mean, and also the story that they told to as an excuse to do that. Was I thought really good, and all of a sudden I'm like, but wait, Jim Gordon's in a hospital somewhere when these buildings are blowing up. What's gonna?
Lassie, Billy's in a well.
Yeah.
The modern hospital, the Gothic
for like 6 months. It was me like, was he gonna be okay or what?
Hey, man,
you know what? When they do a filler, go ahead, Hutch.
Does this PDF have the ad, the Cancer Society ad? Because without that, you're kind of. I mean, the real comic had. It does have the bat signals. Okay. Yeah, it had this thing like Batman's partner did not come home tonight, and then there's a whole thing about how he smokes too much, and the American Cancer Society, and that's the last time that Gordon smoked. But what kind of hits me about that story, this is like after the Batman movies. This is 1990 that they're doing this, and he still looks like a grandpa, and yet in Batman Year One, which came out, when was that? 86, 87?
Yeah.
Somewhere around there. I mean, they de-aged Gordon. So why does he look like a grandpa in this? And
he said he watched Zorro 40 years ago in this particular issue. There's definitely some interesting age things going on.
It's all the cigarettes. He smoked so many cigarettes.
It's the
Sarah Essen and Gordon both get de-aged after this comic came out. They don't look like what they look like in the story.
There's a really good essay, not to get too academic, there's a really good essay by Umberto Eco called The Myth of Superman. Really does a good job of explaining some of what's going on from how superheroes approach time, essentially. And Echo's big thesis is the idea that when you have a story like superheroes that walk the line between myth and novel realism, something has to give. And the thing that gives, in Echo's view, is the concept of time. It breaks down. It has to break down because of the type of story being told. And so that's where you end up with these really weird moments where like Gordon's been like 80 for like 80 years. The guy should be like 160 years old. And it's like, no, but he's because the comics are always in the present. Time can't really move forward the way it should. And it creates a dreamlike quality to the passage of time.
Well, and then of course they go into
welcome to my. Thank you for attending my TED Talk.
I was just saying, I also pointed out that my grandmother, like, looked 50 by the time she was in her mid 30s, and then she continued to look 50 until she was in her mid 80s. So, well, early 80s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but when they did these filler issues for Batman, this was in a time when a filler issue wasn't just a filler issue. They were good character building stories. If I hadn't picked this book, probably the one that I would have picked would have been the one where Harvey Bullock spends a day at home. And Harvey Bullock at the time was the jelly donut dripping on my shirt, kind of fat tub of lard. And when he gets home, there's this transformation because he's this classic movie buff, and his home is clean. It's not this slovenly place you would expect him to come from. And he's got Casablanca movies posters on the wall. I don't remember the title or even the issue number, but that was it was just like I read that. I'm like, wow, that's a whole new side of Harvey Bullock here. I appreciated having that story told.
There you go. So filler doesn't have to just be filler. It can be filling filler. There we go.
And tasty.
Here we go.
I like it. It's filling.
Filling filler. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right.
Sometimes an inventory story goes down as one of your favorites.
Yeah, that's true. That is that. Yeah. Well, he did here with Reese. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess I'll go next. If no one has an objection, and we can wrap up with the.
I thought you'd go last.
No. I think we need yours needs to go.
Really? Last. I'm surprised. Okay.
Because it's insane. So I chose Batman Gotham County Line. By Steve Niles, Scott Hampton. Steve Niles is known for, I think, 40 Days of Night. Let me share some stuff here. I think Reese stepped away.
Oh.
I'm hoping that's a step away. So basically, this is a weird one. This is not a typical Batman story. It's a Batman story that borders on horror. There's some zombies going on in it. There's some craziness going on. There's some black magic going on in it. And it's like I say, it's basically Batman going through the motions of a horror story and a horror comic. So the setup is that there's a serial killer who's operating in the general Gotham County. So the story doesn't actually take place in Gotham City. It takes place out in the suburbs. This is something Batman kind of says, well, I don't really go out into the suburbs because he can't really, he doesn't have the same mobility. He can't do his usual swinging from rooftops thing. He kind of has the similar problem that Spider-Man has once you take Spider-Man out of the city. It's like, I have no mobility. I'm just a guy who's walking around here. So the story actually takes place in a slightly different location. But they managed to make the suburbs pretty creepy. Like I said, there's a serial killer and he's doing ritualistic sacrifice with his victims. And Batman is obviously called in to consult. And the mystery is solved very quickly. There's a little bit of a CSI that goes on, and then Batman finds that a detective on the Gotham County suburb police force by the name of Radmuller, which is evil sounding like German name, right? He's the killer. So case solved. Batman goes to wrap it up, but the killer commits suicide. And it kind of gets Batman to help kind of pull the trigger on hanging himself. And then when that happens, things start getting weird. The world just stops kind of making sense. And then the dead start rising from their graves, essentially, in this area. And Batman has to try to make sense of a world that is starting not to make sense. The art style here is just kind of fascinating to me. It's gritty, and it works really well for the type of horror story that's being told. So I do appreciate that. There's some of this action is a teensy bit clunky, so it doesn't quite fit the superhero vein. But again, I think that's because it fits the horror style so much better. But let me pull some other images here. So the reason why I chose this one, I think, or a couple of reasons. It's definitely memorable. It's one of the stories I remember from when I was in the reading comic books in the library when I shouldn't. And there was something about Batman having to confront zombies. That's obviously a pretty powerful image. Let me pull one of those. That's just Batman and a horde of zombies. And it's just kind of channeling that sort of 2000s. I think it's early. It was around 2005 when this story came out. So you had that zombies were huge in terms of appeal. Here we go. This is the money shot. So if Reese, are you still there? He's behind the scenes. Yeah. So this is the money shot of Bruce basically being confronting the hordes of the undead, and so like I said, so what's going on here, and this is the reason why I think this is an interesting story, is that the dead are accusing Batman. So this kind of dovetails into a little bit of what Reese was talking about, the fact that Batman can't save everyone. So as Batman exists in this crazy cursed world that we eventually learn is basically created by the serial killer. When he committed suicide, he trapped Batman in a cursed reality. And all of these dead people are the dead people that Batman could not save. Mm-hmm. And so in essence, this is Batman's collective guilt coming to get him. So the story works on some interesting metaphorical levels. And so it's not just Batman versus zombies. There's kind of a reason for the zombies, the thematic reason for the zombies to be there. Like I said, they kind of represent the guilt that Batman has or should have regarding the people he couldn't save. But what ends up happening is that Batman is just... he's faced with this almost insurmountable challenge. He's caught in a cursed world. The dead are out to get him. He can't put them down. He can't really, there's really no allies he can really call on. He's, like I say, he's trapped in this cursed reality. So things look really dark and really bleak. And what I think is interesting is that this story confronts levels of craziness and insanity and darkness that a story like Arkham Asylum, I think, kind of does. Grant Morrison's extremely overrated, in my opinion, Batman story. I don't even call that a
Impenetrable.
Batman. Impenetrable. Well, it's interesting because it's a story that that doesn't feature Batman in it, because the character that's in Arkham Asylum is nothing like any version of Batman I would recognize. In Arkham Asylum, because Grant Morrison wants to play with mythology and the hero's journey, and therefore the hero must spear the dragon. So Batman skewers Killer Croc until you realize that Batman is in Arkham Asylum and he is stabbing a mental patient with like a poker. And you go, this is not what Batman would do. And Batman would not moan and cry and do all these things that Grant Morrison is having him do. Yeah. So story is very visually dynamic and has a lot of stylistic things going for it and thematic things going for it. But Arkham Asylum, in my opinion, is the worst Batman story I've just about ever read. Because, like I said,
it's interesting what they did to Harvey, though.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of there's interesting things they did with the Joker too, but at the same time, it's a Batman story that doesn't actually feature the main character because he's been made to be unrecognizable. So that's
interesting sardines and interesting strawberries and interesting peanut butter put into a sandwich.
There you go. Yeah. So what's interesting here is that this story, I felt the horror. How is Batman supposed to overcome this? And there's that moment of helplessness and hopelessness that hits with zombie fiction, because it's like once you're in a zombie world, there really is no escaping it, because like there's just the endless horde, right? So we have Batman confronting this endless horde, and not only do we have them confronting that, this endless horde represents guilt. So it's a very dark story. What's really cool about this, though, is the fact that as dark as this story is in terms of its style, unlike Arkham Asylum, which ends with Batman just kind of being like, you know, having really no satisfying answer for the craziness, the way this story ends up ending is it has this invocation of hope, I would say. So just when things end up being the bleakest, just when he's just, you know, Batman is just completely surrounded by zombies and is just on the run, essentially, from the Horde, this happens. And this is an important moment because we talked about Hutch's story. So here we go. Guess who shows up? Here we go. We have zombie Jason. We have Jason Todd showing up as a zombie, but he's on Batman's side, and this is when things start to turn, and this is where Dead Man features in this story to kind of help try to kind of open Batman's mind to what's going on with the curse, and as Batman starts to open himself up to like kind of, you know, not blaming himself for everything and believing that, you know, what's going on kind of has this magical side to it. What ends up happening is Batman starts to be able to impact the darkness of this world. And as he begins to impact it, things start to turn more and more for the better. And there's this awesome moment where the zombies are just at the gates. They're crashing through the house that he has barricaded himself in, but because he's opened himself up to what's going on, and I think opened himself up to hope, not only can Dead Man enter the cursed world, but this was just an awesome moment in comics because the Phantom Stranger shows up and just says this awesome line, "Stand away from the window, please," and just kabloom, just blows them all to Kingdom Come, which is, you know, the Phantom Stranger is awesomely OP. And this is one of those moments where you can really tap how awesomely OP Phantom Stranger is when he's so like once this happens, you know, okay, not only is there hope, Batman's gonna win. And so we take the typical zombie narrative, which is a narrative of hopelessness, and we have turned it on its head. The good guys are going to turn it around. And so we take Batman, we plunge him into the darkest of darkest types of stories, and then flip it, and he's gonna flip it around and win. Ray Cortex says, "It just seems to me that Twitless just has a rigid view of Batman and judges it on that rather than the creator's own interpretation. My own 2 cents." Again, if you liked Arkham Asylum, go ahead. That character was not Batman by any version of Batman that I can recognize.
Here's the answer to this question. No, Twitless is judging Batman based upon the creator's intent, not Grant Morrison's intent. Grant Morrison likes to play in other people's sandboxes, and he can't control his bladder.
Oh. Where did you come up with that metaphor?
From my great literary mind.
Yes. The only thing I ever remember from Arkham Asylum, I mean, if I think about it, I can kind of remember the story and all that, but the only thing that ever stood out to me was Joker grabs Batman's ass.
Yep. Tight
and
ass.
Batman flinches.
So there's
Get your filthy hands off me.
Wouldn't he?
Yeah.
So here's the thing.
Yeah.
I can easily recognize, yes, Grant, you're doing the hero's journey. Yes, Grant, you're applying mythic structure to a Batman story. Yes, Grant, you're using very creative artwork to do it. I can recognize all those techniques. I can recognize that there's some interesting craft to it. I also have to recognize that in that story, in order to do all of those things, what Grant does, and it's a choice he makes, is to sacrifice the character of Batman and turn him into kind of this blubbering nutcase that doesn't act in line with what we've read for years about who he is. He stabs Killer Croc because it looks cool and looks like a knight stabbing a dragon. And look, there's like symbolism there. And it's like, that's great, but Batman just stabbed a mental patient in a mental ward. And that doesn't sound like something that Batman would do. Batman does different things. And that's, you know, so that's, I'm sure, a debate.
In all fairness, he didn't know that. Thought he was stabbing a dragon.
It might be a debatable point, but it's kind of like, oh, Batman's just, you know, like tripping high, and it's like this is not Batman. We're doing something else here at that point.
Yeah,
and I find that to be divorced from the character, and Grant likes to do that type of thing. I don't care for it. So other people are allowed to disagree with that.
Speaking as someone who was there for it when it was like, you know, new on the shelves and it was a thing, Grant Morrison was not the name that was selling this book. This book came out at a time when Sandman was at its peak comic book sales period. And Dave McKean was doing all the covers on that. And by golly, we've got an entire graphic novel where Dave McKean is going to do all the artwork. That's what sold Arkham Asylum was Dave McKean. Now, Grant Morrison's complete abomination of a story is what people remember. But
yeah.
McKean, I will give credit where it's due. McKean does very clever things artistically in that story, and Grant is doing clever, interesting things with the mythological things. I recognize those elements. I'm not saying I don't, but the fact that Batman Bruce Wayne as a character was completely sacrificed to do cool, interesting visual dynamics, I think that's a very weak story. Because it's not Batman. It's someone else who's wearing Batman's clothes, who's going through motions that Batman wouldn't do. So
welcome to our worst Batman stories.
When did this become my worst Batman story? Let me go back to and wrap up really fast about what's going on, what happens in County Line. So what happens is that Batman now realizes that because Radmuller had weaponized to create this cursed reality, Radmuller had weaponized Batman's guilt. Batman realizes he can control this. And so he has a wonderful moment where he gets to talk to his dead parents and kind of have a bit of closure with them, which is really kind of sweet. And then because he's in control, he realizes I actually have control of this cursed reality. I can basically summon as many allies as I want. I can basically win these fights that were previously unwinnable. And Radmuller is just a thug. He's just a serial killer. He's not a special demonic force. You're just a serial killer. He ends the curse, and he ends it and before it begins, because the whole like cursed Groundhog Day kind of thing going on there. And so not only he ends up saving people who had been killed, a few of them, including the serial killer. The serial killer, Batman prevents his suicide before it happens, and it ends very positively. Tony Sizzle says a mental patient who is also a human alligator. We had an interesting conversation about that. The alligator thing was not always the case. And again, I have to mention the fact that Batman stabs him, skewers him with, I believe, a fireplace poker or something. And that's not how Batman be. And I really think that whether or not you can argue that that's something a human being would do in a survival situation, the fact of the matter is that Batman stabs a guy in the mental ward so that Grant Morrison can have a moment that looks really cool. So the problem I have is that character is being sacrificed for a visual, a thematic visual nonetheless, but you're sacrificing character. That's the point that I'm making there. Character is king, and Batman has been written for years and years and years and years to be a particular character. Batman being a crazy psycho who belongs in Arkham Asylum is not how he has traditionally been written for decades. That is a newer thing that a lot of people actually disagree with and don't like. The Tom King, like, I have just so many mental issues forever and a day, is not necessarily who Batman truly is.
Could I just mention what you're saying about Grant Morrison is true. He likes to go for these great scenes, and it doesn't matter that he's kind of altering the character. I don't know how many times he's had Superman like toe the moon when all the Superman writers are trying to like downplay, he doesn't have godlike strengths that they have. I mean, this is at a time that Marv Wolfman was having him struggle with a Concorde jet, and he and John Byrne were like saying, well, he can lift a ship. So, and then, we have had Grant Morrison have like Superman he lifts the weight of the earth in a simulator or something like that. And it's like, well, how can you possibly give him a challenge? It's like, well, it doesn't matter because he's not trying to write the ongoing Superman. You know, he comes up with, a lot of these writers do this, where they will come up with an amazing scene that shows off a character's abilities. And it's like, but you've just given, I mean, there was one where the Flash, way back when in Justice League, Flash like tossed a Rubik's Cube in the air after he solved it. And when he came back, he caught it and he said, okay, so I ran to Colorado. I looked up in the files. Turns out Tio Morrow is not there. And I also went and looked into why we weren't notified. It's like, okay, that's cool. But then you go to the Flash's comic and now you got to explain why in the space of, 10 seconds, he can't completely incapacitate the, Captain Boomerang. Because, if he can do that in the blink of an eye, it kind of makes it hard. So
Grant Morrison is Grant Morrison is probably an entire stream we could probably do, but I get to try and simplify the point I am making, as I'm not trying to just insult Grant Morrison as a person. I think that he seems to be a nice guy when you're talking to he's plural now, right? He's not. He came out as he said he's non-binary now.
Whatever he uses the plural of majesty.
Okay. So yes. I'm not commenting on him, if I can say that. I'm commenting on the fact that when I read Arkham Asylum, I'd seen the powerful visuals, but when I read the story, I walked away from the story saying the Grant had sacrificed and had ruined characters so that he could do very cool visual and thematic mythological things. And he kind of did that in All-Star Superman, but in All-Star Superman, he did a better job. And so at least when I read All-Star Superman, when I went, he's at least respecting, I didn't feel like Superman's character was getting massacred or sacrificed to do those things. He still felt like it's not nearly as bad as Arkham Asylum. Arkham Asylum is like, who is this person wearing the cowl? It's not Bruce. He's doing things that Bruce wouldn't do. He's saying things that Bruce wouldn't say. And I'm supposed to just chalk it up to, it's a crazy night. So that justifies him acting completely out of character. And I don't think that Clark acts out of character in the same way as Arkham Asylum is. And
the villains are all out of character. Maxie Zeus has electrical powers, and as I pointed out, Killer Croc is now an animalistic character instead of a smart person.
He's the dragon. We have to have the dragon.
He shouldn't even be in the asylum.
He's supposed to be a Blackgate.
Maxie Zeus was the comics equivalent of King Tut.
Yes,
he just believed he was Zeus.
Well, now don't forget, there was a King Tut in the Adam West series.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, is that Maxie Zeus was the comic equivalent.
I see.
In Batman 66, the comic book series, there's a King Tut episode too.
Okay.
So he is in fact a comic character, but not in the main dynamo. Also, Wilfred Brimley says, when will Grant Morrison and Alan Moore fight to the death? I cannot wait to greet the loser.
There's a YouTube video where they fight. It's not real. It's just actor, some people pretending to be, but it's kind of funny because Alan Moore summons Glycon and Grant Morrison uses his sigil magic, and there's some special effects there. It was pretty funny. I recommend Googling it. It's a pretty funny little vid.
I thought there was a rap battle.
No.
Before we go on to the final story, could I just correct Critical Blast here? On Detective 549, he pointed out that that's the story of Harvey Bullock as a cinematic connoisseur, and I looked it up. That's actually an Alan Moore story. He wrote Alan Moore wrote 2 Batman stories in 1985, so that's one of them. Detective 549. However, years earlier is when the Film Freak was introduced, and Harvey Bullock was pointed out to be a film connoisseur even then. So that's not the origination of that, but I do remember the Film Freak. That was right around this timeline of the Nocturna storyline and other stuff like that. So
that would have been about the right time. Yeah,
Batman 400, right around there. What's that?
That would have been about the right time too, because I remember reading that around the same time that the Nocturna storyline was happening.
Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to
I just wanted to make sure we didn't overlook that because it was.
Oh yeah, cool.
So, I just wanted to before we move on. I just wanted to thank Ray Cortex and Tony Sizzle for prompting some interesting discussion there. That's part of the fun of talking about comics. I mean, we wouldn't be comic book nerds if we weren't arguing about comic books. So it's not always going to be we're always loving stories. Sometimes we'll disagree, and that's totally part of comic book culture, a well-respected part of comic book culture. So thank you for prompting that. Thank you for joining the chat. Thank you for watching. This makes it all nothing to apologize, dude. No, it's all good. Thank you for prompting discussion. One thing I'm going to say is this: we need to get back to this. When people challenge me on my points and my arguments, it makes me have to defend them better. And so when I do that, I end up having a better and stronger argument when I'm done. And I noticed this when I had a debate with somebody, and I actually thanked them. I was like, hey, thank you for pushing me on that point. I ended up making it much better after you challenged me on it. So yeah, we need to get back to being able to respectfully challenge each other's opinions and get better at our points we're making. So thank you for that. Thank you for the participation. All right, so Gotham County Line was my pick for favorite. If you want a Batman horror story that still has a pretty cool ending and still kind of, like I said, it has about as happy of an ending as you could have for this type of story, check out Gotham County Line. Now we're going to completely change and do a complete palette change here because Cartoonicus chose the craziest Batman story ever.
Yes.
For his favorite.
I can't believe this is the one you wanted to end on.
It's not Zur-En-Arrh. Please, not Zur-En-Arrh.
Oh, no, it's not. No. So, when it comes to comic book collecting, I am what you would probably call a filthy casual. I have a comic book collection because I buy a comic because I want to read it, and when you're done with it, you might as well put it on the shelf, right, and keep it.
In fairness, there, Cartoonicus, I call almost everybody a filthy. I have 5 4-drawer file cabinets filled with comics, and they're full. I need more places to put comics.
But my point is, I have never once bought a comic book for the value or to complete, that one little, a spot in a collection. I almost always am buying, the collection of a story arc off of Amazon instead of the individual comics. I have a single issue comic book in my entire collection that I specifically went out, hunted down, and paid money for well after it had, was no longer in release, just because I had to have it. Here it is.
Are you sharing or am I sharing? Okay, well, I'll share.
I'm sharing.
Okay, oops.
Okay, there you go.
I have heard nothing but great things about this book.
And it's by King?
Feast your eyes.
Yes, it is. It's the only thing by Tom King that I actually was like, it's okay.
High praise.
I have not. This is one of the ones I did not get a chance to read yet because of technological problems. But I will say that I've wanted to read this for a long time, but there is an issue of Batman where Selina and Bruce go to see Clark and Lois in Smallville at the county fair, and that's a really good comic. So
okay, so I'm going to take over the stream if you would for a second here.
Do it.
I'm going to share. Make sure it's up. Okay, pray for me.
Oh gosh,
that is the name of this. Right off the bat, it's amazing, right? I love how they've focused on Wayne Tower in the background with a giant letter W, just to nail down, in case you forgot, that Elmer Fudd speaks in W's, and the fact that it's raining, so the word Wayne sounds like him saying the word rain.
Oh, I missed that on my first read. That's clever.
That's brilliant. But I just want you to pay attention and listen as you watch the scene.
So
sometimes the rain comes down so hard you forget you've ever been dry. I try to see it out there in the past or in the future. Rainbows waiting.
Wait a second. So it gets this whole thing about. I just thought about something else about this story.
Yeah.
So he goes on about the Wayne and the Wayne and the Wayne, and
Right.
the girl he's fixated on.
Oh, don't.
Okay.
Don't jump
But
ahead.
yeah, you're right. You're right. This is great. The rain in here is awesome. Going into Porky's that day, I try my best to remember. I really do. Things weren't always this way. They won't always be this way. I try my best, and the water seeps in my molding my coat onto my shotgun, and I stop trying, and I head inside. I love that they've literally got this place called Porky's, and there's a picture of Porky Pig there, right? My name is Elmer Fudd. I'm hunting rabbits.
Yeah. Ray Cortex, highlight that, chat. I think that's on the money. Maybe Tom King is the reverse Zdarsky, where he can write comedy but not drama. I think that's actually. I think the fact that he's writing a joke book.
That's what's amazing about this.
Is what makes Tom King be
right.
able to handle
We all
this.
know he usually comes off so cheesy and awful, and yet here it works perfectly as we have a dark, gritty, realistic Elmer Fudd brooding in the rain like a Batman character. This is the stuff of legend. All right, let's move forward, shall we? Bugs the Bunny. We have this gangster with buck teeth eating carrots.
Yep.
Who apparently is Bugs Bunny, and he's after him. I love this menu that we've got here tonight at Porky's. WC and the Roadrunners are apparently playing. The specials are banana cream pie, suffering succotash. And they have something that says, don't settle for roast duck. You can see right here, this is Porky, the owner of the bar. And so he, apparently, Elmer Fudd in this version is a hitman, and he is out to take down Bugs the Bunny here. And, of course, they get an Albuquerque joke in there.
Oh, yeah, he works like the whole thing. Like, there's a bunch of the Warner's
there's
brothers
so much in this.
characters
Acme,
show up. Here's
Acme.
Well, I'm just saying that, like,
right?
a bunch of Warner characters show up as gangsters in this bar.
Yeah. Which is interesting that most of them were villains. Right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, they were like low level thugs, like the thugs that would hang out at this bar.
Right.
And they were all just like they had like little quirks, and so like isn't Marvin like I hear Martians or something? They made
no, I think that.
Let
me get it here.
Marvin's the guy in the Ushanka hat. He says, "Someday I will blow up the whole world with."
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, he's like the crazy one. Yeah,
he's
and
an absolute like a homeless. Crazy
I was
homeless
thinking
man.
that was supposed to be Yosemite Sam.
No, that was Marvin. That's Marvin.
Think so?
Are you showing the artwork? I'm still seeing the Bugs Bunny guy.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I need to move forward.
Yeah, go and scroll down on that there.
I'm not seeing any of this.
Wait,
is it me?
Wait,
oh,
what?
I thought
I'll put you back up because there were less ads.
Okay.
So wait, you have the whole thing then?
I do.
How
So
the
go ahead.
bartender
Then.
looks
We'll
like
continue
Porky
with
Pig.
yours.
Yeah. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, install uBlock Origin. It will just save you, and use the Brave browser, and you'll just notice that you don't see ads anymore. This has got some very interesting. Here we go. There's Tweety Bird.
Yep. Tweety.
And then this guy here with the red mustache. That one's Yosemite Sam. The one that says the crazy homeless dude, that one's Marvin the Martian. And so basically the whole like Warner Brothers rogues gallery end up being just like the thugs that hang out at this bar. There's the WB Frog. Hello, my baby. Hello,
He's holding the dead man's hand. That's aces and eights.
Yeah, that's a foghorn leghorn.
Oh yeah. I said, boy, don't rush me.
Mhm.
yeah. That's Fork and Roger.
Yeah. Nothing is left out of this.
I got a worse hand than a blind dentist.
I
working on
got a
alligator.
worse hand than a blind dentist working on an alligator.
Did I refer to the most ambitious crossover ever earlier? I think I did.
Yes.
All right, so let's scroll down.
Oh,
Let's see.
which scene do you want to go to next so I can pull it
Well,
up?
okay, so long story short, he's here to kill Bugs because he thinks he had a hand in hurting someone he loved. It turns out Bugs has information, and he sends him after Bruce Wayne. So go to page 14 here, hopefully.
They're not named. Did you have to
Right,
get?
you were
complete
on it there a
scene?
second.
This
Okay,
one?
there you go. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, actually, no. Wait, go back up.
This one?
What?
I think you mean this one. All right.
Scroll down. Yeah, here it
You
is.
mean,
Okay.
you mean the one where he pulls the gun and shoots
Yes.
Bruce Wayne?
Yes, he literally shoots Bruce Wayne. And then he takes off. And someone isn't far behind him, of course, as you'll note on the next page.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently he was wearing something.
Yeah. I imagine that.
Right.
Yeah. So the big scene is the showdown, right? Between this is what you came to see. You came to see Batman fight.
Right.
Yep. Bat season, Wabbit season.
So since we skipped past that part, I got to point out the girl that Elmer is in love with.
Well, I was going to get to that, but
His Silver
Silver
Saint Cloud.
Right. Yeah.
Oh,
I admit
Best
I don't know who
Batman
that is.
girlfriend.
She was Bruce Wayne's main love interest back in the late 70s.
Okay. All right.
After Vicky Vale, and before Vicky Vale.
Yeah,
Kevin
and before
Smith
Catwoman.
and ruined by Kevin Smith.
Yeah.
she should have become a Wayne Cloud.
Yeah. So and
Batman
so,
Widening Gyre, which has never been finished, by the way.
I've never even started reading that one, but that's fine.
It's almost halfway done. He's supposed to finish it like a decade ago.
He never finishes anything.
He
Anyway,
finished Clerks eventually.
So
no,
Batman,
he
sorry.
unfinished Quirks.
Okay.
So Batman sneaks up on Elmer here. That's a great shot. And this is really interesting, actually, because rather than have a cool scene or, moment or something, Elmer actually does something really smart as he senses it behind him. Notice I love the creeping shadows. Boom, boom, boom behind him. But he's already got the gun over his shoulder. He just sneaks his finger up and fires, and he almost takes him out.
Yeah, Elmer demonstrates gun fu here.
Right. Elmer is actually smart. How about that?
It's an interest. He's almost too capable. It was. But that being said, maybe I don't know. Maybe
I just like that it was thought out.
Deserves it.
I mean,
Yeah,
they
have
could have just had him whip around and then aim at him. But that was a cool little scene there.
They end up in a standoff, essentially,
Right.
and then realizing that they both essentially are on a similar quest, or that they have similar enemies. So they join. They go from. It's basically that typical superhero setup. We have to have our superheroes fight, but in this case, it's our superhero and our cartoon character.
Well, and to clarify, what turns out, the reason he's after all these people is because he has a lover, like you said, Silver St. Cloud, who got killed years ago. And he's been convinced that it was Bruce Wayne who killed her. And so he's after him.
No, I'm sorry. I have to correct you there. He thinks that Bruce Wayne did it.
Bruce Wayne.
Yes, absolutely. He keeps this up, of course, through the entire thing. So excellently done.
All right. So how does this epic crossover
Okay,
conclude?
so eventually they realize that they've both been duped, and Bugs is behind it, and they decide to go back and take care of Bugs. And we're going to have this standoff to end all standoffs, as these guys go up against every single major Looney Tunes character in the book. And again, just gaze on it in the next couple pages in all its glory.
I can't show the whole thing, but I can show. Let me show a couple of them.
Okay.
Here
Yeah,
go.
there's Sylvester.
Yeah, there's Thuffering Thuckatash.
Right.
And Fudd gets him right in the geez. I will say Elmer Fudd gets to really get his dignity gets repaired. I feel like Tom King is trying to overcompensate for the years of
right
of jobbing. Yeah, the years of jobbing that Elmer Fudd has done, but it's at the expense of clowning on every other Looney Tunes character here. And like I said, somebody gets pretty harsh. I think the one that I thought was rough was Marvin the Martian just gets his head jammed into a table. I don't even think he was doing anything. I thought that was a little rough. It was just like, you're in the bar, you're getting your head jammed in.
How about Tweety who gets a gun shoved into his mouth?
Tweety deserves it. I'm sorry.
And I love that Daffy says you're despicable.
But yeah, this is just a who's who that Batman and Elmer get to punch, essentially.
Yeah. If ever you were annoyed by how much the Looney Tune characters bullied people, this is your retribution.
Neo Star says, seems like Tom King has to compensate for a lot of shortcomings. Yeah, that's another stream.
I just want to say that All My Enemies Against Me is only $9 on eBay, and I'm having to shell out over $20 to get this one.
To get this, you're saying?
Yes.
I thought you were saying to get
really? Okay, I got it for. I think Cartoonicus got it for me for my birthday.
I got two of them, one for me and one for you.
Yeah. So I have a copy.
Yeah, it's hard to come by. I went looking for it like after it came out because I'd heard really good things about it, and like it was completely off the shelf. So
one thing I do have to make, because the real winner in this story. Do you want to spoil the ending? We got the real winner. Okay, because the person who actually wins.
Surprise, surprise! She's alive.
And
she's got a carrot.
She set it all up.
Yep. She faked her own death years ago, used all of them to do it.
And only came back to keep Fudd from becoming a murderer.
Right.
Yeah. So the story kind of ends with just it's actually
kind of
funny.
Wait, zoom back up again. We have such a great shot with the three of them just standing there, dumbfounded.
Yeah.
Like, well, now what?
Yeah. Okay, so one thing I do have to say is that the story actually ends with a mini shot of they did it both ways. They had Batman, Elmer Fudd come into Batman's world, but then the book ends with Batman going into Bugs's world, and then of course having to do the whole
duck season, rabbit season.
Yeah. Bat season. So with predictable results.
And then there's a third one that deals with Catwoman and some other things, but we won't get into that. I'll let you find out for yourself. You can shell out the $20.
I want to see Catwoman meet Tweety now.
Just this weekend I had just read a comic that I had bought and never read. But it's Foghorn Leghorn and Yosemite Sam meeting what's his name? The cowboy with the scar across his lip.
Jonah Hex.
Jonah Hex, thank you. I couldn't remember for the moment. It's getting late.
Yeah,
but
sure.
they do the cartoon version and they do the weird. It's like you got to have talking animal characters in with DC Comics characters. And
well, and that's one of the things that I liked about how this one is instead of trying to have talking animals in the Batman story, or even they seem to not really work even with the Jonah Hex story, because Jonah Hex has some weird stuff, but nothing that weird. You know what I mean?
Well, Yosemite Sam goes to a prostitute and there's an oral sex joke, so it's definitely a Jonah Hex story of the time. Jimmy Palmiotti wrote it.
On his Philiac.
But Reese is right. They could have just made this one big goof or even cartoon Batman. But they played it totally straight. And they managed to successfully fit this gosh darn cast into the Batman universe, and it makes sense. And I'm fascinated by that.
Now, the one thing that seems crazy to me is it seems like a lost opportunity where they didn't like make that continue. Like, why isn't Bugs a recurring character in Gotham City? Like, that seems like that would be a given.
I mean, they're both owned by Warner Brothers. They can make that happen anytime they want.
Yeah. Like, since the seeds have been planted, all it takes is for some writer to say, well, technically.
Yeah, because it's not, and it's not like it would, and it's not like this version of Bugs has to impact the actual cartoon Bugs either.
Right, yeah.
But the cartoons have continuity.
But this version of Bugs fits in with the Penguin and Maxie Zeus and Black Mask and the whole.
I agree. So there we go. That's the new. That could be our concluding sentiment. Go forth, some writer, and write Bugs more into, like, make him be the snitch on the newest gang in town. That Matches Malone can go get information from.
I was just about to put that name out of my mouth. Get out of my head, witch man.
Sorry. You don't like Malone?
No. I was just getting ready to say, hey, Matches Malone and Bugs Bunny.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that would be an amazing thing there.
Well, for Brinley says I'm on it, writing it now. Okay.
Oh, we're gonna hold you to that.
Yeah, and they did have Space Ghost meets Green Lantern. That was one. I think I have that one. I never read it.
I kind of like the Flash Speed Buggy story too.
Yeah, I had Black Lightning meets Hong Kong Phooey.
Ooh, that sounds awesome.
That was
Hong Kong Phooey was one of my childhood heroes. I loved everything about the show.
Oh man,
all of
Abigail
these
is
are
right.
mediocre, in my
The
opinion.
Looney Bin. How did they miss that one?
Sorry, what did you say, Hutch? Which ones were mediocre?
Oh, I'm saying that most of those stories, it's just
the crossovers.
Aquaman meeting Jabberjaw, and he's a real shark instead of a guy who talks like one of the Three Stooges.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. It doesn't. This stuff doesn't really work.
It doesn't land. Well, this one, I think this. Yeah. I have to admit that as much as this one does land a lot better than you'd expect it to, and it works way better than it should.
Well,
it looks good.
One of the things that I've liked about it too, and I haven't finished reading it. I read the first part of it and then kind of skimmed the rest of it. But even Tom King's Batman in this is not Tom King's Batman. Right? He's writing because Tom King writes Batman is like this super sad, this morose. He's directionless. He doesn't know what to do. He needs Selina to help him find his way because he's spent all these years fighting criminals and not looking out for himself. And what would his mom say about his desire to be happy?
Okay,
and it's
I need therapy now. Please stop.
Probably 3 pages that the editor took out right there when Silver St. Cloud reveals himself. 3 pages where Batman just goes into a soliloquy about his mother.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Well, that's the thing, though. This wasn't focused on Batman. It was focused on Elmer.
Yeah.
Batman was kind of just the guest.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So that is a really good point. And you got Elmer got to do some of those same kind of whiny Tom King things, but it really fit the character in the framework because so
I guess
he was out for vengeance.
It just goes to show that if even a writer that may be considered bad or not good for certain things, as long as you put that person in something that suits their gifts. And that's something that I've learned when I've worked with Omega Girl as well, is to try to do my best to suit people to their gifts. Hey, colorist, or hey, artist, I think this story would really play to your strengths. I have an Omega Girl story Cartoonicus actually did that plays to his strengths, and it's like you gotta work with the strengths of your creative team. And so maybe, like I said, Tom King seems to have a winner here. Maybe he just needs to not write Batman. He needs to write a different type of story, and suddenly people would really just sing his praises. People like, this book works. So he just needs to write something else.
More of this.
A lot of chat about the Future Quest stuff. And Neostar says we need a DC character to cross over with Frankenstein Jr. or the Impossibles. If you want to do Frankenstein Jr., the character you cross over with is Stargirl and Stripe.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Stargirl and Stripe was so fun. Anyway.
I thought it was Stripes.
It might be.
Well, I think
it
the
was Stars and Stripe. The
Stars and
original
Stripe
series.
was the original thing, because Stripe is an acronym.
Right, but I still thought it was Stripes.
I have to say, I always thought his name was Stripacey. I didn't know it was Stripesy. I was always Stripacey, and I thought that's a really terrible name because I wasn't saying it right. It's Stripesy.
Stripesy was still a pretty stupid name.
Well, it is. Pat Dugan never got a cool name, but anyway, and hey, there's speaking of wraparound, there's a Nebraska story for you all. California girl goes to Nebraska, becomes a superhero. That's the story. Okay. But yeah, I guess that's the show, guys. Let's wrap it up pretty quick. Does anybody have things they want to pitch before we go for the reels?
You want to pitch Tom King out a window? Okay, I'm kidding. Wow, it's a joke.
Wow,
it was a joke.
You after just reading something you loved.
It was it was so set up. I couldn't. I could not resist. Check out Adventures of Omega Girl. I have like 3 issues, like pretty much ready to go. If I could I'm working on some production, actually it's like distribution challenges, but I already sent second issue, a digital issue to Reese for the second one. I already have the third. So like it's coming, ladies and gentlemen. So I have to get RJ needs to invite me on his show at some point so I can shill to your blast.
I don't go fishing. People come to me. Come to me.
Okay, all right.
So, also, I'm going to take this time to point out my little thing. You can go to my Gumroad store right now and get yourself some Ideal Comics. We've got the 2 volumes. They're all digital stuff that's available there. We've got 2 volumes of Zing 1 and 2.
Check out Zing. Zing's great.
Zing is amazing. Not just because I wrote half of it, but that's a big part of it. But yeah, they're anthology titles that cover a chunk of our history from the 20th century, superheroes, a little bit of horror, a little bit of Western, a little bit of comedy. You're gonna love it. And it's $2 a piece, so check it out. And we've got some other stuff on the website too, including a chiptune album. If you like the chiptune, check it out. So there you go. Oh, that's not a clickable link. Okay, let me see if I can't fix that.
And Cartoonicus, is there something you want to shill?
Well, we definitely got to do Super Scold after all of this, just to point that out. By the way, they're in college now.
Well, I mean, for now, yeah. Which lets me make a bunch of relevant jokes because of certain experiences I have.
And I shared my thing on there that my YouTube channel, I should have some videos coming up soon. I've been learning a lot about video editing in the last few weeks. So
sweet. Cool.
Yeah. And I did a video of my reviews of all the Batman movies, and then I looked at it and I'm like, I need to redo it and with more energy and faster, and it doesn't take an hour. So I'm actually going to redo it along with reviews of the most recent movies. So
okay, gotcha. Okay, so that's what's coming up. You got a redo of some Batman, and then you're looking at the more recent Batman films. Is that what you're?
I actually, after I finished that, I actually did see the Justice League, the original Zack Snyder cut, and I thought I should put that in there, and I should put in the Suicide Squad movie and a few things that I missed. So, so I'm going to redo that countdown. It's one of those things where you have the S, A, B, C, D levels, and you can do your
the tier. You're doing a tier list.
Maker.
Yeah, tier list. Yeah, okay, tier maker. Yeah.
So I did one of those, and I was like rewatching it. And I'm like, even I'm bored by this. I got to get more energy and redo. So I'm actually rewriting what I'm going to say, writing it out better, more cohesively, more energy. So
one thing to consider is to maybe get a partner, sometimes to riff off of, and then you can that can sometimes help. So like if you get someone who counterbalances you and can just add if you're being analytical, get someone to add the humorous meme energy to throw the one-liners in.
Okay.
There are people.
You're volunteering, are you?
There are people on this panel who can offer some of that type of energy. So just throwing that out there.
Sure.
But yeah,
RJ,
okay,
you got something to say. I can tell you.
Something to shill.
Oh,
You're champing at the bit.
I'm doing the shipping on this one, but it's not my comic, so I'm sub-shilling. The Immortal Mask. This is from Denali's.com. This is 3 issues. All of them are done. In fact, I have them in inventory and ready to ship. So as soon as they're ordered, he says, "Hey, send a comic and ship them out." If you like 70s noir, if you like who's that guy who did he had a strange death.
Frank Miller's
Alex
Sin City.
Alex Raymond. If you like the Alex Raymond style of artwork, this is definitely that. The Immortal Mask is it's sort of like the Phantom. It's a mask that gets passed down generation to generation from one man to another. And this is set in the 70s. We're going to meet the 30s mask. It's the whole reason why he disappeared. 3 issues set in Atlanta. And from what I understand, everything in this book is 100% true, except for the fact that there's an Immortal Mask character.
Yeah,
so it's been heavily researched. It's almost like a documentary of crime.
It's a documentary plus superheroes or whatever.
Just to sum up, Cartoonicus and I are webcomic creators, and I also do straight superhero work. Hutch is a big, like a Batman kind of like expert, really, who's like had some, experience with some mainstream type. Didn't you have some like experience with like, or at least some very powerful, interesting interactions with mainstream people?
I've got a lot of stories, but that's about it.
No, but that's important. That's important, like industry stories. So Hutch knows his Batman, and Hutch has some insider industry stuff.
To explain a little bit, Hutch was the editor-in-chief of online fan magazine called Fanzine for a number of years. And so in that, he interviewed all kinds of guys, and that's part of that. So
RJ runs his own, as you can see, the Critical Blast, branding there, runs his own website, and also does, you do the logistics for...
we do, for a lot of people.
Yeah.
We've fulfilled several campaigns now, over a dozen, almost 20. And I am sitting here biting my nails and getting giddy and nervous and scared all at the same time because there's this little thing going on out there called Fiendish #2. From Rini Strakowski.
Rini, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and we are the fulfillment agency behind.
Wow, that's a big get. So just if you're interested in just any of these angles on comics, then feel free to check out. Like I said, if you have needs and interest in that area, and of course, Reese runs Ideal Comics, which not only has web comics, but also you do a blog and articles, I believe, on issues. Yeah, so if you want any of those things.
They're all old stuff right now, just because that's what time allows. But that's the thing in there, and you can check it out, idealcomics.net. And we've got webcomics, we've got a Patreon, we are doing new stuff that we're getting ready to put out too. I don't know the exact timeline, but Forces, our long-running webcomic, which has been on hiatus for 2 years, we'll be having new stories hopefully by the end of the year. So we'll see how that shakes out.
So if you're interested in any of that, check it out. Wilford Brimley says back of Lasmat's Clock People when it comes out. So we have some. We have everybody. We're all shills. That's at the end of the day. That's how the comic industry runs.
Yep.
Thank you very much, everybody, for joining. And obviously, a bunch of people in our chat are creators as well. Please check all of their stuff out. And thank you guys for coming, Reese. Obviously, it's your show.
Yeah, well, I was going to have all sorts of... I was going to go out with one of our videos, but because my other computer was being stupid, it finally woke up, but it took 2 hours. Good night, everybody. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So
definitely going to do this again. But next week, we are keeping up the theme of my favorite video game comic. We're going to be having...
next week.
That's next week.
I think it was 2 weeks ago. Okay.
Nope. It was 2 weeks last week when I talked to you about it.
I got some scanning to do.
That's how that works. So
there was only one. So,
it's only been 1 week. So we got one more.
No, I mean, there was only one comic. Yeah.
All righty then.
Yeah. Anyway, we will catch you all next time.
And I promise next time I'll read them.
Okay. Peace.
Bye.
Bye.
Where's the button? Oh, goodness sakes. It's over here. I forgot how to do this.